Hey guys, these are our notes. We're starting lesson 3 about actually gathering the data, collecting it. So this is going to go in your digital notebook, slide 33 through 35, gathering data. At the top of your paper, you can go ahead and put your title, notes 1.3.1, gathering data. We're going to look at 3 different ways that we can gather data. So the first one is what we call an observational study. This is just going to be a study where you collect the data and record it so that you do not change the subject that you are measuring. So it's just a study where data is collected and recorded in a way that does not change the subject that is being measured or studied. This is something where there's no influence being done onto whatever you're studying. So it just gathers data without influence. The second type that we're going to look at is an experiment. An experiment is where the participants have to participate in some sort of process, action, take some sort of substance, and then they observe the outcomes. So it's just when participants are subjected to some process, action, or substance, and the outcomes are observed. And recorded. A lot of times with an experiment, to be able to show validity, you have to have more than one group so that you can show cause and effect. And the last one is our survey/sample survey. Survey would be if you asked everybody, and sample survey would be if you just were able to ask a sample. And this is when you just ask people questions. Basically, it's just a study of quantities or attributes of items or people of interest. Just a sample is taken. That's when a sample survey is if you can't ask the entire population. And your questions that you ask must be neutral and can't be leading in any way. So all of these, ways that we can gather data can create bias. So we're going to just mention a few different ways to get rid of bias and make our results not as accurate. So one way to lessen bias, which we talked about in sample selection, is to randomly select and assign. So you select your sample randomly and you assign them randomly to, if you're doing an experiment, your other groups. Another way to lessen bias would be to have an unbiased researcher. Like if I was asking you how much time you spent on your homework last night, you might not want to tell me the truth compared to someone else. Then you can also make sure that you're ask non-leading questions. And then you can blind people from knowing certain information. So like the people don't know if they're in the control group or the experimental group. And then you can also have something called a double blind where both the experimenter and the participant don't know. But those are all ways we can lessen bias. All right, we're going to go do just 4 examples, basically just giving us scenarios when we decide if it's observational study, experiment, or sample survey. All right, example 1, it says Spirit Week is approaching and the student council, oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This is on page 93 of your workbook, Unit 1. Spirit Week is approaching and the student council wants more students to participate in this festivities by dressing up. Student council members plan to collect data on the most popular dress-up themes for Spirit Days of Spirit Week by asking other students what their favorite themes are. Since the student council doesn't have much time to funding, members will not be able to talk to every student. What method of data gathering will most closely match what the student council is trying to accomplish? All right, so step 1 says just consider all of the methods. We learned 3. There was observational study. We had experiment, and we had survey/sample survey. And then it says recall the distinguishing characteristics. We're gonna have to write it down. Observational study, you just observe, no interaction. Experiment, you subject them to something. And for a sample or survey, this is where you ask questions. So, the situation, what do they determine the purpose and the characteristics that are required? Okay. All right. Well, in our problem right here, it says that their goal is they want more students to participate in the festivities. Okay. That's what they want. The way that they want to do it is they want to use the most popular dress-up themes. And they want to do this by asking other students what their favorite themes are. They don't have time to ask everybody, so they won't be able to talk to every student. Will not be able to talk to every student. Okay, so they want to increase participation by using favorite dress-up themes. And how are they going to know that? They want to ask. They have to ask to know. And they run out of room, but they aren't able to ask everybody. So it should be pretty easy to tell if it's an observational study, an experiment, or a survey. Since they have to ask, that's your survey. Since they're not going to be able to ask everyone, then it's just going to be a sample survey. So all of this work, kind of this stuff that we did up here, that's mostly what you guys are going to do mentally. Every time you get a problem, you don't have to write it down, okay? You don't have to write it down every single time. You're going to do it more so just mentally in your head. Okay, these are the three options. These are some, characteristics of each. What does this problem want to know? Which one does it fit under? All right, so let's go example number 2. Flip your paper over. It says the student council successfully gathered data and used it to choose the themes for each day of Spirit Week. Now that Spirit Week is finally here, council members need to know how each theme affects student participation. They plan to sit in front of the cafeteria during lunch each day of the Spirit Week and count the number of students dressed up for the day's theme. What method of data gathering most closely matches this plan? Okay, so in your head, you think of your 3. Observational study, experiment, survey. So a survey, they would have to ask them. It doesn't mention anything about asking, so it can't be a survey. Observational study, they just watch and record data. Experiment, you have to subject them to something. So it says right here, they're just going to sit in front of the cafeteria and just count the number of participants. So they're not having any sort of interaction or anything with them. So that means that this is just an observational study. Sit and count without interaction. All right, example 3, it says to encourage as many students as possible to dress up for the final day of Spirit Week, the student council is giving away raffle prizes donated by local businesses. Every student who dresses up gets a free raffle ticket. Council members will gather data on how many students participate in the last day of Spirit Week and compare that information with the data they gathered from their observational study on dress up participation for the other days of the Spirit Week. What method of data gathering will most closely match what the student council is trying to accomplish with the raffle prizes? So originally, the other 4 days of the week, they just did their observational study that we talked about up here. Now it says that they're going to give away raffle prizes. Each student who dresses up gets a free raffle ticket, and then they want to basically compare them. Okay, they want to compare that information. That means that they are doing an experiment. They're giving some sort of outside incentive, that raffle ticket, and then they want to compare it to when they didn't give out the tickets. So outside incentive is offered to compare data and see if those raffle tickets got participation to increase. Last one, example 4, it says Mrs. Weber, the school nurse, keeps a log of all symptoms reported by students. Lately, there has been a marked increase in the number of students coming to the office complaining of back pain. After researching factors that lead to back pain in adolescents, Mrs. Weber found heavy backpacks have led to injuries in other schools. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that students' backpacks weigh no more than 10 to 20% of the student's weight. Mrs. Weber would like to find out the average weight of a backpack at her school. Which method of data collection will provide Mrs. Weber with the best information for answering her research question? Experiment, an observational study, or a survey? So an experiment, she would subject them to some sort of outside like activity or whatever. She's not going to do that. An observational study, she would just kind of sit back and watch, right? But a survey, she would be able to ask them questions. So she would be able to ask them questions like, does your back hurt? How much does your backpack weigh? How often do you carry it? Those kinds of things to be able to figure out the average weight of the backpack. So she would be able to survey them and ask them how much their backpack weighs. And then she would be able to ask them, if they're having back pain and whatnot. So our answer is just a sample survey because she's not going to be able to get to all of the students. Most of the time we can't get to all of them, but just ask to weigh students' backpacks. and ask about back pain. And that's it. So that's what your homework's going to be, or classwork will be about identifying those things. And that's it.